We are going. Look. We're going live early. What is up? NASCAR 2311, Front Row Motorsports, settled. The lawsuit has officially been settled today. Hello and welcome. We had to do an emergency live stream. I literally put this together within 30 minutes from the news that dropped today. Catching up here in the chat, we can fire Steve P. Johnny Morse seems to think so. What's up, Chris, Grippy, Jason? Good to see you guys here in the chat. We're going to continue talking a little bit and kind of talk about how we got here. It's been a wild 24 hours. We went live yesterday for Motorsport Report. We had some really great calls. We had Tommy Joe Martins on the show. We talked a lot about the ins and outs of stuff. I had no clue that I would be going live today. I'm glad that I didn't have anything going on because holy shit. And I want to start this off because apparently a lot of people did not realize what happened. And, of course, the phone lines are open, 980-317-8717. Feel free to get your calls in, voice your opinion, talk about, what your thoughts are. But I'm going to go ahead and start by telling you guys a little bit about kind of how this all started rolling. Like, obviously, we had court yesterday. It didn't seem like there was a ton of things going on. But after Tuesday, which was probably the biggest day in NASCAR, Tuesday, right? We had Phelps on the stand, we had France on the stand. We'll talk all about it. First caller, Motorsport Report, you're live. It's a breaking Motorsport Report day. Who we have?
Okay. Zachary Cook from Alabama.
Zach, we're talking all about the NASCAR versus 2311 settlement on this episode. This is what we are doing here on this episode.
Is it the final day?
It just was settled. It was just settled. So this is an emergency Motorsport Report because of the lawsuit being settled. Do you have anything to say about the lawsuit being settled? Are you up to date on everything that's happening?
I don't know a whole lot about it. Just refresh me.
Well, we'll let you go. I'm going to go ahead and talk all about it, and then we'll kind of take some more calls as they come in. So I'm going to go ahead and get into that for everybody that's joining us now, okay?
Right.
All right, Zach. All right. So, again, an emergency episode today where we will be taking calls, but we are going to be talking all about this settlement, what this means, kind of what's happening. I want to just start off by this. So we're going to go over here. This is kind of where I feel like a lot of this started today. Was from this right here. This came out at 7:23 p.m. last night. Bass Pro Shops founder Johnny Morris, the commissioner, recently revealed contempt for Richard Childress makes it abundantly clear that he and his lieutenants are not capable of being fair and objective when it comes to impartially enforcing the rules and regulations, reported by Bob Pockris. And I'm going to read this letter for you guys that maybe didn't get a chance to see it. So, and of course, I'm looking here in the chat to JR and Kelly teed it up. Johnny hit it out of the park. And it really does. Like, when you look at this thing in the optics of what's happened over the last, 72 hours, I would say, at least the last 3 days, you had the Dale Jr. download come out. A lot of people have been following the teardown. With Jeff and Jordan, they've been reporting what's happening in court every day. And, when I saw Dale and Kelly, we didn't get to talk about that as much as I wanted to on yesterday's show. But when we saw them come out and state their piece about it, and then this hit, I knew that this right here was going to move the fucking needle. So let's read this. This is a statement by Johnny Morris, noted conservationist and founder of Bass Pro Shops on NASCAR, and his friend Richard Childress. This is his writing, and apparently he wrote this while he was in the woods hunting, which makes it even more hilarious. Just kind of shows what kind of guy Johnny Morris is. He's out there. He's in the blind. He's trying to bring some meat back home for the family. He don't have to, but he does it anyway. Anyway, let's read it. I've been a NASCAR fan since I was 7 years old. When I started going to races at the Fairground Speedway in my hometown, Springfield, Missouri, with my grandpa Will, who was a lineman for the Frisco Railroad. We watch Willie Crane, Mark Martin, Ken Schrader, the Wallace brothers, and others try to beat our local hero, Larry Phillips. In the years that followed, our company, Bass Pro Shops, has become a proud sponsor of NASCAR, a sport that resonates deeply not only with our own outfitters, but with our core customer base, America's 180 million outdoor enthusiasts and 60 million hunters and anglers. I speak up today on behalf of the wonderful people in our company who consider it an honor and a great source of pride to have sponsored NASCAR and our friend Richard Childress as his grandson Austin Dillon for a very long time. Since Earnhardt Sr. and Richard Childress welcomed us to the sport 28 years ago, Richard has become a special friend in life. He's a great leader, a fierce competitor, and a passionate advocate for outdoor enthusiasts and conservationists. He is a true American patriot. Most of all, to us, Richard is a longtime admired and respected member of our Bass Pro Shops family. As I write this today, way too many of my fellow teammates, our valued customers, our independent dealers, and respected members of the conservation and military communities are outraged by how Richard and his family have been treated by senior leaders. Okay, going to page 2. We are extremely upset by the recent disclosure of shockingly offensive and false criticisms of Richard by the Commissioner of NASCAR, Steve Phelps. For the Commissioner and his allies to attack one of the pillars of the sport is incredibly irresponsible and a disservice to anyone involved in NASCAR and its partners, sponsors, and fans. What Mr. Phelps may or may not be aware of is the fact that in attacking Richard Childress, the racing legend, he is also attacking one of the most respected leaders in America's conservation community. The commissioner has repeatedly labeled Richard as an idiot, a dinosaur, a stupid redneck, and a clown. That's from the texts that we all saw. Okay, the fact is Richard Childress has done as much to build and promote NASCAR as anyone in the history of the sport. The commissioner, in all his rant, has only managed to bring discredit to himself and the sport. Many of our teammates have validly expressed concern that the commissioner's recently revealed contempt for Richard Childress makes it abundantly clear that he and his lieutenants are not capable of being fair and objective when it comes to impartially enforcing the rules and regulations that govern the sport, including the objective assessments of fines and penalties. This is a threat to the very integrity of the sport. We can't help but wonder what would happen if Major League Baseball brought in a new commissioner and he or she trash-talked one of the true legends who built the game, like Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Ted Williams, Mickey Mantle, or Babe Ruth. We need to get Johnny a little bit more updated information on some baseball players. But that's a good group, okay? Such blatant disrespect would probably not sit well with the fans. He's right. Such a commissioner most likely wouldn't or shouldn't keep his or her job for very long. Okay, this is kind of him low-key calling for the firing of Phelps. Leadership. We write this letter with genuine respect for the family who gave birth to the great all-American sporting tradition of NASCAR. The France family has always celebrated the beginning of every race with faith and prayer and saluted patriotism with the signing of the national anthem and remaining steadfast and going above and beyond to honor our veterans and active duty military. They have built a sport celebrated by hardworking American families. It is painful for all fans to watch the current conflict and division occurring within the sport we love. We hope the France family and team owners will reflect carefully on the damage that's being done to NASCAR in the ongoing dispute and dig deep and strive hard for compromise. We're cheering for a prompt and fair resolution that creates a positive path to a happy and long-term future for the founding family, team owners, and most importantly, the fans. One thing is for certain, as the leaders of NASCAR seek to grow the sport and attract new generations of fans, they must never turn their back on or abandon the true pioneers and especially fans who formed the foundation of the sport we love. Respectfully submitted and originally handwritten in the Deer Woods. Johnny Morris, NASCAR fan. I love how he just hand writes that at the end of that letter. So I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an understanding of like that letter, what happened, and why we saw that. Catching up here in the chat a little bit. What a PR nightmare for NASCAR. What's up, Hammond? King of Colin Siggs in chat. NASCAR better clean house and swing for the fences on making changes in the sport because the damage has been done, says the Hobgoblin. So this comes out at 7:23 p.m. last night. That was already big enough as it is, right? Anytime someone like a Johnny Morris, Bass Pro Shop, when you think about Bass Pro Shop, you can't help but think about NASCAR. At least that's the way it is for me, right? I think about NASCAR when I think Bass Pro Shop. There's a couple of sponsors that are out there that really like attach to the sport, right? And so this is one of them, and this is a big investor in not only RCR, but in NASCAR. A lot of NASCAR fans shop at Bass Pro Shop. It is what it is. So when you have something like this come out, you're sweating now. So what's funny is is that we kind of like let's go from there. This was at 7:23 p.m. last night. This stirred a lot of controversy. And then this morning they get to court and they immediately go into a private chat, which then triggers Bob Pockrass and Jeff. I've been following Jeff and Bob all morning long, and we'll go through all these posts together. But this was 4 hours ago. Bob Pockrass tweets, "Could there be a settlement? The judge told the jury they are going to sacrifice an hour of their time today to hopefully save several hours of their time." So this was 4 hours ago. Okay? It was reported on X. Once that was out, I think the next post that I saw was from Jeff Gluck. And that's when Jeff basically came out and says, alert. This is 3 hours ago. Jeff Gluck, I'll put us over back on browser view so you guys can kind of see the posts. So here it is. This was 3 hours ago. Alert. Jeffrey Kessler tells the court, "I'm pleased to say the parties have positively settled this matter in a way that will benefit the industry going forward. Document will be presented to Judge Bell shortly. All teams are agreed to, just waiting on typing final doc." 3 hours ago, this thing settled. And then they immediately go in, and I have all the posts and stuff that are here right now. But I wanted to start that off by just sharing that because I put out a tweet where I was just like, hey, Johnny Morris saved NASCAR. I mean, if you really think about it, optically it looks like Johnny Morris puts this letter out. They're already getting beat to hell in court. The court of public opinion, they've already been beat down to shit. There's a stain there that it ain't going to come out. Okay, so now what we have is a video of Kessler that was coming out. Adam Stern put this up, and this was kind of like when they all gathered out by the steps. So when they all gathered out by the steps, they finally were like, okay, we're going to approach the media and talk, and I'm going to let you guys hear what was said here.
This has been settled. We believe it's a settlement that's
thanks for the sub, Gob.
Sport. That's going to be great for the teams and for NASCAR, but most importantly for the fans. This case was filed 15 months ago. This was never about just 2311. It was never just about front row. It was about trying to do something that was to be great for everyone. And as part of this deal, we are going to have Evergreen charters that are going to be available for everyone.
Okay.
That this case has been settled.
So what he just said and what you see here, NASCAR has agreed to Evergreen charters forever, per Jeffrey Kessler. Now, this was a little bit I didn't really know how to take it at first because I'm like, holy shit, like charters are permanent now. And it's essentially what has happened now. So the settlement, while we don't know a lot of the financial details of like how it works and what's happening, a big thing is now that these teams have these charters. And I kind of will explain it a little bit to you. I have some notes written up over here. Give me 1 second to get it typed up, and I'm going to catch up here in the chat. So catching up here, if everyone had a friend like Johnny Morris, they would be a better place. Hey, thanks for the sub, brother. Appreciate it, brother. Anytime you subscribe, by the way, the Authorized J, shout out to you. Anytime you subscribe, by the way, you're going to get a good job from Dale. He's going to pop up in the screen. So just to kind of explain what Evergreen charters are. Okay, for the first time since the charter system was created in 2016, NASCAR has agreed that charters will no longer expire. They will renew automatically forever unless a team chooses to sell or give theirs up. In other words, teams officially own a permanent stake in the NASCAR Cup Series. Their charter can't be taken away when a contract cycle ends. Their value is now locked in long-term, just like the NBA or an NFL franchise. So that is what that means. And while I do see a tweet here, Hamlin on the Rock says, sad that the chances of seeing JRM and Cup just plummeted. Denny and MJ seem very happy. And I think that was a lot of what this was about, right? We wanted some stability. They wanted to know that this investment, when they're going to sponsors and they're going to people, they want to know that, like, hell, we got a really big stake in this and we have a little bit of control. And we talked a lot the other day, on our show, kind of like the way F1 is. F1, the teams own F1. So this is like a step in that direction where NASCAR teams own NASCAR, in a sense. It's still different. It's not 100% the same. But when Stern came out and posted, hey, thanks for the sub, Reese. Great job. Appreciate it. So before today, charters were temporary, owned at the pleasure of NASCAR, set to expire after each negotiation window, not guaranteed to be renewed. Teams had zero security. What changes now is that charters no longer expire. They auto-renew indefinitely. That's what Evergreen means. Just letting you know. Teams finally have real equity in the sport. Charter values will skyrocket. Teams can plan long-term and attract investors. This essentially ends the threat of a breakaway series. So whenever we look at this, just kind of like the last thing that I'll say about this to make sure that you guys understand exactly what it is. Evergreen charters mean the teams finally have permanent ownership in NASCAR. No more 7-year cycles. No more threats of NASCAR taking charters away. No more negotiating their existence. These charters now renew automatically forever. This gives teams real equity, real value, long-term stability, and it completely reshapes the business of the sport. So when I come out and say that this is a historic day in NASCAR history, it really is. Like in 30 years from now, if they have a sports economics class, you're going to be reading about this in textbooks. Your grandchildren and your children will be learning about it. This was a historic day for the sport in that way. Now, it does change things a lot, but it makes, in my mind, it makes NASCAR, it puts NASCAR kind of like in the same playing field as other professional sports in terms of like how it's operated. And anytime you have someone like a Michael Jordan come in, a lot of people, I don't know how many people know this or not. I talked to a few people that had no clue about it, so I'll say it anyway. He used to own, or he might still own, I'm not really sure, the Charlotte Bobcats. So he owned an NBA team. He's been in these circles. He's been around this world. So when he comes into NASCAR and he's like, yo, like you're saying that you can't give us guarantees, you can't do this, you can't do that, it's very confusing to him, right? Because this is a family-owned private, sport that it's been that way for so many years. So now we're moving into a future where it's a little bit more connected with the other sports landscape. And apparently it was enough to make him happy. So we'll get back over to X. Going to look at a couple of other posts that were made. What Michael Jordan and Jim France said about the settlement. This one is big, and we're going to take a moment to watch this one.
In each other's favor, but I think, collectively, and I don't think Jim was any opposite of me, was the fans has always been the best solution to this whole process, to the sport itself. The only way that, and I've said this from day one, the only way this sport is going to grow is we have to find some synergy between the two entities. And I think we've gotten to that point. Unfortunately, it took 16 months to get here, but I think, level heads has got us to this point to where we can actually work together and grow this sport. I'm very proud about that, and I think Jim feels the same.
Jim?
Yes, I do feel the same. We can get back to focusing on what we really love, and that's racing. And we spend a lot of time not really focused on that so much as we need to be. So I feel like we've made a very good decision here together, and we have a big opportunity to continue growing the sport. We've got Denny Hamlin getting ready to go for the championship, and we need to focus on what we all love.
What was the impetus that made it today and not earlier?
Level heads. In all honesty, when you get to the finish line, sometimes you have to think, not just for yourself, but you got to think about the sport as a whole. And I think both parties got to that point, and we realized that we can have an opportunity to settle this, and we dove in and we actually did it. Unfortunately, it took us that long, but we got here. That's all that matters.
Do you feel like it was worth it?
Well, both parties feel like it's worth it because we understand we had to work together. Compromise in every negotiation is one of the toughest things that you can do, and I think that you can say that we both compromised on both of our agendas, And I think we both come to the conclusion that it's better for the sport.
There's so much family history wrapped up here, not just for you, Mr. France, but also for you, Mr. Jordan. Can you talk about just what it means to you from a legacy point of view?
Well, I grew up watching his father build this sport, you know, and I didn't want to have to tear it down. I don't think he wanted to be tore down, but I think when, you know, under calmer circumstances, we actually voiced what our interests may have been, you know, collectively, and at the end of the day, we reached some type of compromise. And to me, that's in every negotiation. That's in every, you know, agreement. And I'm very happy we stand on this step to move forward as opposed to moving separate.
All right, so I don't know who was working the camera on that video, but yeah, Bob Hockers. Bob tries. You got to give it to Bob. Some other videos. This was another one from Bob. I think it was a little bit quicker, but we'll watch it anyway. This was Hamlin. Michael Jordan said both sides compromised. Denny Hamlin wouldn't go into what the compromises were.
That both sides compromised. You guys got Evergreen charters. I'm just curious, like, what did you guys?
I feel like everything within the settlement is going to grow the sport, and it's going to be better for everyone. There's no doubt about it.
Jordan said that both sides compromised. You guys got Evergreen charters. I'm just curious, like,
pretty simple explanation. So obviously they're not going to really talk a whole lot probably about, you know, what the financial terms of this thing are. Like, I feel like our ceiling has been hit for the things that we will know. So we know a pretty extensive history, and apparently a lot of the things that came out, like it's still kind of surface level shit. It's a well that goes very deep. Don't get me wrong. It's a well that goes very deep. But if they're happy, I'm just happy NASCAR isn't dying. I'll say that. Jim France did not look super happy, but it looks like you kind of had no choice. So, 2 hours ago, so that was just some of the videos. We're going to go ahead and just read now. This was a statement from teams and NASCAR, so that we can get the gist on this. Bob put this out. Shout out to Bob. Bob, Jeff, all the media crew, man, that have been out there at the courthouse just doing the most. Shout out to them boys and girls. Joint statement from NASCAR 2311 Racing, Front Row Motorsports. NASCAR 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports are pleased to announce a mutually agreed upon resolution that delivers long-term stability and creates the conditions for meaningful growth for all teams in a more competitive environment. This resolution reflects our shared commitment to maintaining a fair and equitable framework for long-term participation in America's premier motorsport, one that supports teams, partners, and stakeholders while ensuring fans enjoy uninterrupted access to the best racing in the world. The agreement allows all parties to move forward with a unified focus on advancing stock car racing and delivering exceptional competition for our fans. With this matter now resolved, all parties look forward to working together alongside all chartered race teams to deliver world-class events, dynamic sponsorship, and partner activation opportunities and continued growth for generations to come. As a condition of the settlement agreement, NASCAR will issue an amendment to existing charter holders detailing the updated terms for signature, which will include a form of Evergreen charters, subject to mutual agreement. The financial terms of the settlement are confidential and will not be released. What all parties have always agreed on is a deep love for the sport and a desire to see it fulfill its potential. This is a landmark moment, one that ensures NASCAR's foundation is stronger, its future is brighter, and its possibilities are greater. We extend our sincere thanks to Judge Kenneth Bell and mediator Jeffrey Mishkin for their professionalism and guidance throughout this process, and to their jury for their time. So Michael Jordan, Denny Hamlin quotes, so I'll just kind of read over these quickly. MJ says, "From the beginning, this lawsuit was about progress. It was about making sure our sport evolves in a way that supports everyone, teams, drivers, partners, employees, and fans, with a foundation to build equity and invest in the future and a stronger voice in the decisions ahead. We now have the chance to grow together and make the sport even better for generations to come. I'm excited to watch our teams get back on the track and compete hard in 2026. Hamlin says, "I've cared deeply about the sport of NASCAR my entire life. Racing is all I've ever known, and this sport shaped who I am. That's why we're willing to shoulder the challenges that came with this, with taking the stand. We believed it was worth fighting for a stronger and more sustainable future for everyone in the industry. Teams, drivers, and partners will now have the stability and opportunity they deserve. Our commitment to the fans and the entire NASCAR community has never been stronger. I'm proud of what we've accomplished, and now it's time to move forward together and build a stronger future for this sport that it deserves." Bob Jenkins, after more than 20 years in this sport, today gives me real confidence in where we're headed. I love this sport. It was clear we needed a system that treated our teams, drivers, and sponsors fairly and kept the competition strong. With this change, we can finally build long-term value and have a real voice in NASCAR's future. I'm excited for the road ahead, for the people in the garage, the folks in the stands, and everyone who loves this sport. Curtis Polk, my goal as a member of the team negotiating committee was to help create an economic model that would create a more sustainable model for teams and create a more equitable and transparent system within NASCAR. This settlement achieves significant progress towards the 4 pillars. The result brings NASCAR and the chartered teams into better alignment and supports future growth and sustainability for all stakeholders and a better sport for the fans. France says the outcome gives all parties the flexibility and confidence to continue delivering unforgettable racing moments for our fans, which has always been our highest priority. I don't know why I just did kind of like a ringleader voice for that, kind of like a circus ringleader voice, but I did. Which has always been our highest priority since the sport was founded in 1948. We worked closely with race teams to create the NASCAR charter system in 2016, and it has proven invaluable to their operations and the quality of racing across Cup Series. Today's agreement reaffirms our commitment to preserving and enhancing that value, ensuring our fans continue to enjoy the very best of stock car racing for generations to come. We are excited to return to the collective focus of our sport, teams, and racetracks toward an incredible 78th season that begins the Daytona 500 on Sunday, February 15th, 2026. Got to get the plug in there. So that's all the statements. And now it's just kind of time for some talking, some opinions on this. There's going to be a lot of posts that are coming out about this, but a lot of the big questions. And I see some of you guys in the chat. Authorized Jay says, Chase Holden, what do you think will happen with Steve Phelps? I think he's gone. I don't see how you keep somebody in a position like that after it's been exposed how he talked about Childress. You can forgive, but you don't forget. You know, that kind of stuff right there sticks. It just shows character behind closed doors, man. And it's like Johnny Moore said in his letter. It's just like it just shows a lot. And anytime that something like that would have happened, like for one of the greats, one of the legends in a sport, people talking about them like that, usually you probably don't see that person stick around. We know that Phelps has been potentially chasing a PGA golf commissioner role, which is funny because that post came out, I think Stern reported on that back in April. And it's almost funny because like Phelps was president of NASCAR, and then he became the commissioner of NASCAR. And then it comes out that he's gunning for this PGA commissioner role. So it's almost, the timing of it's almost funny how he went from being the president, they put O'Donnell in that position, and then Phelps is now commissioner when they never had a commissioner before. So it's almost like he was trying to get like a resume point. So that way he could roll into that easier. I think that that's always been his goal and his motive. And don't take that as fact. Take that as an opinion, an outside opinion from the optics of this entire situation. So I don't see how they can keep him at this point. I think that it's just, he is now going to, he will always and forever be considered a stain. And I think that if he does stick around, it's just it's gonna be very distasteful for fans, especially after this entire lawsuit happened. All this shit got drug out in the open, and everyone could kind of see what was happening. I don't see how you're able to keep that, and I think that would be a huge disservice to NASCAR as a sporting organization, as a league, whatever you want to call it. That would be a huge disservice, not only to them but to the fans. So I do think he's got to go. As far as O'Donnell, you know, you can make claims here and there. I don't really know if we'll see OD out of the door. I don't really know. And I think a lot of people really like have been loosely connecting Phelps and O'Donnell. I'm not trying to sit here and say I'm taking up for O'Donnell or anything like that. But what I am saying is that just because Steve Phelps said some things that were really ugly and, you know, he had very strong opinions apparently about Richard Childress that, you know, he never thought would get out into the light of day. And they got out in the light of day. And when they get out in the light of day and you feel that way about somebody that literally put together what is ultimately, you know, one of the greatest legends in NASCAR and one of the most legendary cars in NASCAR, and you talk shit about that guy in the sport that you're in, you know, I've had people call in on this program and tell me that there's people that talked about like he'd never even watched a race before, you know, so before he took the job. So it does seem like with him leaving the president role, becoming a commissioner, it was almost like he was trying to resume ladder and get ready for a move to the PGA. And so his head's already out of it. Apparently Jim France doesn't know shit. We talked about that yesterday. He don't know. You know, he's just, you know, everybody I see in the comments, people talking about the auto pens and shit. But yeah, it's like there's people online that are telling me like, cause like I put out Johnny Moore Save NASCAR kind of as like a joke. Cause like optically it's like the timing. You can't deny the timing. You can't. And there's some people are like, oh, this was not due to the letter. I don't know if it was due to the letter or not. And I really don't care. It's just funny because the timing adds up. It's like this letter comes out. Oh, shit, we got to figure something out. You can easily figure out how to settle within a 12-hour period. Anybody that thinks that it takes like days to figure that out, you just don't know how the world works. So I had some people like telling me like that online. They were just like, I'm like, dude, I've been working in this industry for a while now. You would be shocked at how quickly things come together. So I'm just saying, if it can happen in a sport, you know. But I think also too, optically, a lot of people are just like, damn, NASCAR's low key dysfunctional. So I think a lot of that is going to change too. You know, it's just a very interesting time, man. It's such an interesting time. As a race fan, you know, I know I got a lot of IndyCar stuff back here, but I mean, I was born a NASCAR fan. I was a NASCAR fan first, and that's important. It was always important to me to see this series continue because of the history that it has. I didn't, you know, you don't ever want to start from scratch and go over. So I was always hoping for a settlement. But you just didn't know if NASCAR and the leadership at NASCAR were going to be able to get their head out their ass and let their ego go a little bit. So maybe it took some outside forces. It took a lot of ugly things being unveiled to the public and public perception, because we talked about it already. They won. I mean, the teams won in the court of opinion. When you got jurors twiddling their thumbs over there, Jim France is probably just like, fuck. They already got their mind made up. So, I mean, they did the right thing. They did the right fucking thing. And I am happy about that. I'm happy that teams get Evergreen charters. I think that this is going to be huge. I think that this could elevate NASCAR to a point to where it's as big as the NFL and it's as big as these other series. And I think it's cool too, because like we're entering a future where we don't really know what is going to take shape. But I think that the soul and the spirit of NASCAR will be able to survive stronger than it ever has before now, which is huge. The Authorized J in the chat says, Chase Holden, it always pisses me off when someone comes into a sport and haven't even watched any of the sport. You think that would be a general requirement? Well, it's just because a lot of people, they're hiring off of skill set. They're hiring off of, you know, who you know, what you've done before prior. And I've talked about it a lot on my shows in the past. Like it has seemed like just from working in NASCAR, I know a lot of great people that work in NASCAR now that have been longtime NASCAR fans. I'm one of those people that kind of loosely work in media that has been a NASCAR fan his whole life and has always loved the racing. So when you're at that spot, like you approach your work with a little bit more of a passion and you care a little bit deeper. But when you're hiring people based off of just kind of who you know and skill set alone into something like this, I mean, you're always going to have those worries and those toss-ups, you know. And apparently it just got really out of hand over here because they, you know, if you're starting to lose viewership, we all know that the tank started around the time Brian France had taken over around the 2014 when the playoff stuff, everything was kind of going downhill. We saw a little bit of an uptick in 2020, 2021. It was one of the first sports that came back during COVID, and that's kind of when like I started riding the media wave, was right around COVID. So, you know, doing podcasts and things like that with sports betting on NASCAR. So I did see for like that first 2 years, like 2021, 2022, 2023, it seemed like, okay, we're back on an upward trend now. Things are good. But then in 2024, it's really stalled, dude. And it just plummeted back again. So it's like, you know, you had one of those little dips, like you watch candles on the stock market. You know how that shit goes. So now I feel like we're really positioned to go on a good upward trend. If you're an investor in the stock market, one may say I'm a little more bullish today on NASCAR now. Okay. Bad Grandpa in the chat. What's up? Sigs in chat, baby. Says NASCAR ain't settled with Gramps yet. I want some free admissions. You tell him, he's like, I got my redhead, I got the cigarettes. We're going back to Martinsville, okay? I'll never forget you, Bad Grandpa. That Martinsville race was great, man. Time now to focus on the core fan base. I don't think heads are fully out of asses just yet. Maybe not. But we're a little bit closer than we were yesterday. I'll say that. If they pissing away money left and right, center, then open the gates. We want the money. Give us the money. I don't know. Like, I would love to hear some of you guys' thoughts. Again, I got, like, the phone lines are open, 980-317-8717. We had a really big call yesterday. And like I said, there's been so much that's been coming out. You know, and if I did miss your chat, feel free to hop back in here or feel free to call. But, you know, some other things that it came out. I don't think there was really a ton of other information, but now we just kind of speculate on what's to come. So I feel like realistically, the next thing we'll probably see is, all right, we got us a caller. Let's see. Motorsport Report, what's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, Chase, it's Dave in Daytona calling back.
Dave, what a day, brother. What a day. How are we doing today?
I'm doing great, man. I can start making trip plans for 2026 now.
There we go. There we go. Well, yeah, what's your take on all this, man?
Well, I think you're spot on as far as the timing. And I kind of go back to a Dale Jr. download. It was probably several months ago where he was very critical of the car, talking about, you know, the wheels and the diffusers and how it was basically an IMSA car. And then he kind of cooled. We didn't hear much for a while, and I think that Mike Ford was on one of the downloads and talked about how basically NASCAR was policing everybody's voice, and if you said anything they didn't like, you know, they were going to come visit you. So I think they might have, you know, everybody, they were ultimately pulling in the same direction for the good of the industry. So, and I know a lot of people have been waiting to see kind of what he thought about this. And the other night when he and Kelly got on there, and you could kind of tell that they had clearly lost, you know, Dale Jr. and Kelly as advocates for NASCAR wanting this to get settled. I think that kind of teed it up. And then the letter from Johnny Morris just hit it out of the park. I think once, you know, they've lost so much public opinion, unfortunately, and they let so much stuff get out that they can never put that genie back in a bottle. I think it was just perfect timing, and they'd have taken enough. Yeah. Well, I'd say enough floggings, but that might be inappropriate, so I won't use that word. But
that's like,
but they had. Yeah.
I was gonna say that's gonna be on T-shirts at NASCAR races, guaranteed. Like.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, man. But I think I like that, you know, you agree. And I feel like a lot of people, especially people that watch our show and people that listen, people that just have eyes and a brain, can kind of see that, like, optically, you can't deny the timing of all the pressure that's coming down, right? So Tuesday, the biggest day in court, you have the Dale Jr. download drop, and that was a great episode. I highly recommend everybody that is here right now that hasn't watched that episode, the most recent Dale Jr. download, go to the part where him and Kelly are just shooting the shit, and they're talking about it all, because you learn a lot during that. And like you said, Dave, like, you know, and then the Johnny Morris letter was kind of the dagger to the heart, I feel like, because that's a lot of money. That's a big sponsor, and sponsors don't typically talk like that. So that was the most shocking thing to me. Like, I really did not expect to hear, like, a large sponsor come out and say something, but the fact that they did, like, I think that's what kind of and it probably did. That letter came out like 7:00 last night. So I feel like after that letter, maybe they were talking about settlement a little bit before that. But do you agree that their lawyers could have got together between, shout out to the sub, Greg, thank you. Do you believe that their lawyers could have gotten together within probably a 12-hour window to get to court this morning and say, okay, look, we're here? because they already had to kind of have these plans, right? They like optically they had to have been kind of making a strategy of like worst case scenario, we do settle. This is the way we should do it. How do you feel about the Evergreen charters? About kind of essentially making these teams more like a franchise?
Well, I think at the end of the day that, the teams basically forced their hands. And I think really because once the finances got out and they saw how much money was going to the France Foundation on an annual basis and how the teams were basically, as overall they lost, I believe it was $85 million during a certain point of time, that it's like, this is not equitable. And like Hamlin says, the teams are the ones that are putting on their show. So at least it needs to be some fair, equitable money distribution. So the teams are at least breaking even on a bad year. And when Hendrick loses $20 million in 5 years after winning 2 championships, obviously, the prize money or whatever they're paying through this charter system needs to be increased in some fashion to keep all the teams in good standing and to cut down on some of the turnover. Because you've had guys that were in the sport like Cale Yarborough, Bobby Allison, all these guys that made a sincere effort to stay in the sport, yet they couldn't afford to do so.
Right. No, I completely agree. For me, like now, looking at this from like a marketing mind, like I feel like with this, there is that long-term comfort, right? And I feel like now teams can kind of figure out brands and companies that they're aligned with and bring them into the sport, which ultimately, through networking, NASCAR can make some other deals. We might see, some bigger sponsors taking over races, wanting to, put their name on a race. So, and then that's going to increase purse size over, down the road in a couple of years. So
agreed.
I think that they are like, this was the only, for our generation, for the time we're in today, this was the best case scenario for teams to kind of make it a little easier for people to understand that watch NFL. They understand, this is an owned team. There's a person that owns this team, and they kind of operate in that ecosystem within a larger ecosystem. So now NASCAR can focus on that larger ecosystem. These teams can focus on their enterprise and know that they are attached to that larger ecosystem in the financial way. Because like I know optically that might be confusing because it's like, well, that was kind of what was already happening, but it turns out it just was not happening at the level it needed to be happening. So yeah, right. It kind of rights some wrongs. But I love to hear that. I love to hear that you're getting ready for Daytona. I'm excited that we're actually going to have, because yesterday we didn't even know if we were going to have Daytona. So it's I know a lot of people are still upset about the tracks and stuff like that. Especially a lot of IndyCar fans, I think, wanted to see some of the tracks open up a little bit. But in the grand scheme of things, the future's bright, and maybe there'll be a lot more fairness and a lot more understanding kind of going forward. And I'm excited to see how that plays out. And I appreciate all the things you bring to the table here, Dave. So I appreciate you calling in.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it, Chase. Have a great day.
You as well, my man. Take care.
Take care.
Dave from Daytona calling in. Second time caller now. Catching up on the chat here a little bit. Let's see. Nothing will change unless NASCAR makes major leadership changes. This settlement doesn't break up the monopoly. It's a Band-Aid at best that will just have them all back in court in a few years. Well, like I said, I feel like if we don't see some leadership change, like, it's one thing – it's one thing for somebody, especially when you have like a hard-shelled ego, maybe, that if you want to frame it like that with like Jim France, people have the ability to change. And I am always going to be an advocate for that. There's a lot of people out there that think because somebody did something one way for a long period of time that they're always going to be that way. And that's just not true. It's not true. Like, people do have the ability to change no matter – it doesn't necessarily change what they've done in their life, but you don't judge people off past mistakes, because this could be the start of Jim kind of opening his eyes a little bit and realizing, like, man, I kind of need to widen my view a little bit. I need to open my eyes a little bit more. Maybe I need to be a little bit better. Maybe I need to think about things a little bit differently. And if in leadership, I agree. I do think that Phelps probably should see the door, because optically it's not going to be good if he sticks around. As far as O'Donnell, I don't know. Like I said, I like to believe that people have the ability to change, because I do believe that people have the ability to change. And so it is a time where a lot of us are going to be super judgmental. But the fact that this happened today, whether it's because they were backed into a corner, and it's probably why, it's probably the truth, it's probably why, you get backed into a corner enough, you're like, okay, we fucked up. And that's probably why we've got this settlement. But I will say that I do think Phelps kind of, resigning would be the move. As far as anybody else in leadership, I'm not going to say. It's just mainly because of the Johnny Morris thing, the Richard Childress disrespect, and just knowing like how they talk. And maybe there's a couple other people that are in there that maybe should, maybe shouldn't. I don't make those decisions. But what I can say is that I think optically it would be smart for Phelps to resign. And I do think that there should be a little bit more open policy, just for people that want to feel like they can trust NASCAR again, or like, because this lawsuit really opened a new doorway for fans to kind of like care a little bit more about the internal aspects of the sport. So I do think that people's eyes are a little more open now, and we should have coverage on we should get some updates like, hey, this is what's going on in leadership right now. These are some of the things that we're working towards. These are some of the things we're working on. If you follow the media enough, like you go back enough in time, like there have been people that have reported on little things like that here and there. But I think that people are going to be paying a lot closer attention to that going forward. And I think that's a good thing. The more informed people are, the easier it is to spot bullshit when we see it. And we all know now that collectively as fans, collectively as an industry, like Denny tweeted out earlier today, he said, let me pull up the exact, because I don't want to fuck up exactly what it was, but I quote tweeted it. So let me go to my homepage, and I'm going to read it verbatim, what Denny Hamlin posted. He said, "Standing up isn't easy, but progress never comes from staying silent. The reward is in knowing you change something." And that's what it's all about, bro. That's what it's all about at the end of the day, is like you did something that a lot of people would never have done. No one would have ever went up and challenged the sport of NASCAR. Michael Jordan had the resources to do it, and he put it behind hey, I'm a NASCAR fan, and I'm now a team owner, and I want to see this thing be great and all that it can be, but there are some roadblocks, and there are some things that are holding it back, and I just want to move those things out of the way and put together a group that can help things be better, or to show you guys a new way, because there's been a lot of speculation, would teams want to buy NASCAR? I think that if you pulled enough money together from, MJ, Hendrick, Penske, and maybe some outside investors, it could be very possible. But like with the France family, for legacy's sake, just for name's-sake, it is, technically in a perfect world, you would always want to have this family business being ran, right? And even though we had the call yesterday, the guy was talking about they wanted to get out and do the NFL. It's like, well, this may be the last generation where we do see that. And maybe it's not. But I think that they don't want to get in a position like this again, especially if they're smart. They don't want to be in it because, they see the impact. It's just a different impact now in the world of the internet. Motorsport Report, what's your name? Where you calling from?
My name is Andy, and I'm from Daytona Beach.
What's up, man? How
got
we doing
a question
today?
for you guys.
Yeah.
My thoughts on this whole thing. I think NASCAR won.
Yeah.
Reason being, NASCAR owns 90% of the tracks, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So let's just say Jim France is now 82 years old. You think he wants to retire? He probably does. So, instance, if Jim decided to sell all the tracks, there would be no NASCAR at all.
I feel like, I mean, I see where you're coming from. Like, theoretically, like, I understand, like, your point, but I think that it's a little more complex than people might realize, because there is a lot of people involved in this thing, and there's probably a lot of people that have some money that don't want to see it fail. So, like, if he did decide to do that, I do think that, like, maybe you would have some shifts for like a season, but I feel like people would get things in place pretty quickly, because I think that there's enough people with the livelihood that want it. And I don't think that, I don't feel like, because they've settled, they've kind of like got to this place where they're like, okay, we understand this. And I don't think that if they had that type of, if Kessler and 2311 and FRM had any like doubt about the integrity that he would have towards this thing, I don't think that they would have settled.
Well, see, we'll never really know what the settlement is. That's the thing.
Well, the financials of it.
It's just that my thought. I was born and raised in Daytona. I've been going to the races since I was born, and the France family has done a lot. But people got to understand is, they are maintaining the tracks. The teams aren't maintaining the tracks. Okay, he could easily sell those to Amazon for distribution centers. And he could say, I'll take all my money and I'll retire. And guess what? You guys are on your own. I don't think the teams want that, or the drivers.
I know a lot of people have that fear, right? And, like, I've thought about it. Don't get me wrong. Like, I've thought about it, Andy, like, for real. Like, I've thought about that, but I did a lot more research, and I feel like people think that just because they own it that they have all this power, but I feel like there would be enough fight back to where, like, they can't just do something like that. Like, and I don't think that it would ever come down to that, because it's like, unless you're like on your deathbed and you don't care what anyone thinks about you or your legacy for the rest of your life, and you're just the most purely evil motherfucker that doesn't care if the teams and the drivers and their families all starve to death or whatever else, like, it's not going to be that simple is what I'm saying. Like,
right, I understand what you're saying, but you got to look at that in the opposite direction.
Well, I know there's a lot of
the
people
France
that think
family helped these drivers do this to get to that point to help them be successful. Yes, everybody knows NASCAR. Everybody knows racing is ego. They make no money. Okay, it's all about ego.
They make some money.
But the France family gave them the opportunity to try to do the best that they could. And all that I'm saying is that I think that was a negotiation tactic that kind of shut everybody up. It says, if I sell all the tracks, there'll be no racing at all. Well, it's very simple.
I think that if it were, I think unless.
But that's all right. We can argue about that all day. Yeah.
Yeah. If that's all you got, that's cool, brother. I appreciate you calling in and giving your opinion. Thank you.
Got it.
So that was Andy from Daytona, and like we said, I know that there's a lot of people that think about that and that worry about that, and I myself have. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I've thought, like, man, wait, is it that easy? Like, is it really that easy? But the more research I did, the more I realized that, like, they don't, like. Maybe optically people can see them wielding that much power, but there are certain things that would come up that would not just allow them to just be able to snap their fingers and shut NASCAR down tomorrow. Like, I think we have to think about the reality of, like, what all of that would entail, how much pushback there would be, lawsuits, there would be legal things that would happen if they came out and did that would get drug out. It would be they would end up losing everything they've worked for their whole life just from lawsuits, more than likely, unless they had, like, God as a lawyer. So that's what I'm trying to explain to people. I see RIP Kentucky Speedway in the chat, and I thought about it. Damn, shout out to Cole Custer winning on the outside that one year. Great times. Living in Cincy area, it was great having a track in our backyard. A lot of people think the way Andy has thought, and that's crazy. I mean, and I can't. I'm not gonna shit. Like, I was about to say shit mouth. I'm literally making up cuss words here today. I'm not going to shit talk people that believe that, but you have to understand, we live in America. There's a legal system. If they decided to do something like that, they would have lawsuits like coming through their asshole, out through their mouth, and going up to the sky. They would lose everything they worked for, is what I'm trying to say. So, yeah, it's not as simple as that. It's not as simple as the France family can just shut NASCAR down and that's it. There will be a lot of, they might do it, but by the time they're done, they're going to have $0 and he's going to be living in a box. Do you think Jim France wants that at 80-something years old? No. So I'm just saying you got to kind of understand those parts of it too. And I don't think, and like I said, I have seen online. I've talked to people. I've seen a lot of people believe that and think that. So I just want you to do a little more research, do a little more independent research on like what would really happen in a situation like that. There are ways to do that. You can kind of look into those things. The current management has taken a race from me at Richmond, Dover, Pocono, and NH. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of hate that Dover's an all-star race, but it is what it is. I can speak that much to it. But what I will say is that I do think that where we are right now, I think that everybody is, NASCAR, Jim Franson, maybe they're not 100% happy about this, but it was the right thing to do. And I feel like the next step is, Phelps probably should resign just for the optics alone. Not saying he's bad at what he does, even though, a lot of people can say that. And technically you could say that just because it's just more about the character. It's more about what has been revealed now. You can't go back. It's like Dave said, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. And so you have to come to that understanding that, like Johnny said, this happens in MLB, that dude's going to hit the door. So just think about those things. Think about those things and understand that it is most likely that Phelps will probably resign or he will be released or let go. As far as anybody else on the inside, I don't know. But I do feel like we're now at a place where we can take what we have, where we're at. MJ, Denny, teams are happy. Evergreen charters, both the teams and NASCAR have to have discussions and talk it out before any changes can be made now, which is huge. It wasn't like that before, and now it is. This is going to pave the way and lay a foundation for the next generation of the sport. And I'm sure there will be a lot more positive changes to come. There may be a little setbacks. There may be a little bit of dips here and there, a little bit of cracks in the surface. But for the most part, we're going to get racing in 2026. The charters are back at 2311 and FRM. They're evergreen now. Can't take that away unless there are conversations had by both NASCAR and them. There's no more pressure tactics, no more bullshit. So I think that we're everyone's a winner. Everyone's kind of a winner here. And I know that there's the whole argument about they own the tracks and things like that, but I think that I did a pretty good job at presenting when Andy called in why that's probably not realistic. If he goes to just say, fuck everybody, blow up the world, you're going to get sued, dude. So it's as simple as that. But France's interview, he wasn't thrilled. His facial and body language said the opposite, the words coming out of his mouth. Yeah, kind of, You can tell a lot by the way somebody looks in such a serious situation like that. But, no, it's just been great. I just wanted to come on here, and I wanted to chat with this. I appreciate Andy, Dave calling in, Zach calling in earlier today. Appreciate all the calls. Appreciate all the chats, everybody kind of listening. We've been going roughly an hour now, so we're gonna shut it down for the day. We'll be back for Motorsport Report next Tuesday. We're going to be talking about all things now that we've kind of close the book a little bit on the lawsuit. Any news between today and Tuesday we'll be covering on Tuesday's edition of Motorsport Report, which will be next week because I'm going to be getting ready to go back to Nolans for Christmas. So make sure to join me on Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time to talk about anything developing between now and Tuesday. We'll also talk a little bit about some of the IndyCar stuff that came out. I don't want to really dip into that a lot today, but there were some pretty cool announcements that came out about independent officiating, which we talked a little bit about on the final episode of Speed Street with me and Connor Daly with Dirty Mo Media earlier in the month. Or late last month. We did talk about those things kind of starting. They did release that today. Evernham's a part of it, which is pretty cool. So we'll dive in, and I'm sure we'll have a little bit more context on the whole thing. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys for joining in, for tuning in, for just following along with this show and what we do here. I'm Chase Holden. You can follow me on social media at Garage Guy Chase. Make sure to drop a like on this live video. Get in on the comments once it becomes a video. And again, thanks so much for watching. That's all for me today on this emergency breaking news edition of Motorsport Report. The NASCAR versus 2311 lawsuit has been settled, and we can all move forward. Much love, guys. I'll see you later. It's Motorsport Report, motorsport news for you.